In a previous episode, I shared with you how garlic is usually grown. It's a simple process. Get a head of garlic, plant out the individual cloves, and wait. I also demonstrated how garlic scapes must be cut down to ensure a bigger clove. Since scapes are flower stalks, I begin to wonder why garlic, unlike onions and leeks and all its relatives, couldn't be grown from seed. Or could it? You're about to find out. I'm Siloé Oliveira, and the plant kingdom has always fascinated me. Follow me in this journey towards sustainability as I learn and share information about the plants that sustain us in my suburban homestead. This was my first time growing garlic, and of course I couldn't just conform to the traditional way of growing it, so I had to experiment a bit. Instead of growing them in fertile tilled ground that is kept free from weeds, I grew it on my flower bed, next to tulips and irises. It would have to compete for nutrients, water, and light. I was not expecting a good harvest. I wanted to see just how much they could fend for themselves. So once the tops began to shrivel up around July, I knew it was time to pull them and see what had become of my experiment. Although they were smaller than the initial cloves I had planted, they were still well formed and of a decent size. I was expecting worse, so I'll count this as a success. A few were single cloves still, but I couldn't blame them. With the masses of flower sapping the juice out of this piece of ground, these garlic plants were miracle workers. With their roots pressed up against mats of replicating black-eyed Susans and shoved by ballooning gladioli bulbs that can take over a garden like mold takes over decomposing organic food, the garlic had transmuted with little air, light, and water it could glean into flavorful flesh. A botanical alchemist. Out of 4 store-bought garlic heads, I got about 2 dozen, albeit smaller specimens. I even had left a few plants develop their scapes into clusters of bulbils because I wanted to see what would happen. If you look closely at these clusters, you will see bulbils with garlic flowers interspersed. It means that garlic does have flowers and potentially can produce seed, I thought. I wanted to investigate further and see what would happen. I yanked out a garlic plant that I had allowed to develop its scape and compared its bulb development to the one that had been shorn off of its crowning glory. Indeed, the scapeless plant had developed a larger, multi-clove head, while the scapee had developed a small, single-clove bulb that garlic people call rounds. This means cutting scapes is essential for bulb production. I hung the harvested garlic as a bunch in a dry place without direct sunlight, so I could use it as I needed. A few weeks passed and I went out to check out on the progress of the garlic scapes. The flowers had withered and the bulbils had grown and developed a papery husk, much like a garlic clove. At this stage, they were ready to be harvested and be used much like seeds to grow new garlic. You know they are ready when they easily come off as you apply a bit of pressure with your hands. Now only hard-necked varieties of garlic produce scapes. Soft necks rarely produce scapes, and when they do, it's in the middle of the stalk. Now these are not true garlic seeds. This is still vegetative reproduction, much like garlic cloves. You are in fact using genetic clones. Some sources claim that by using bulbils, you can refresh the garlic stalk, diminishing diseases. When you grow from bulbils, it will take you at least 2 seasons to reach mature size of completely developed bulbs. The first year, they will grow into rounds, or 1-clove heads. Harvesting the rounds in the summer and then planting them in the fall should produce full heads. The time it takes is a disadvantage, but the amount of new plants you get is a huge advantage. Patience is key, however. I decided to plant them in a pot using potting mix enriched with an organic fertilizer. I did this because I lacked free sun-exposed space in my garden and wanted to see what would happen. Now, while bulbils are cool and all, I was really interested in producing real garlic seed. produced by sexual reproduction and non-vegetative cloning. When you produce viable true seed, you are in fact creating new varieties which can be adapted to local conditions. This is what is called land-raised gardening. I did some research on the topic and found that most sources claim garlic flowers, the ones I saw growing next to the bulbils and that later shriveled, are infertile. This would mean it would be impossible to grow garlic from true seed, at least by using non-wild varieties. That's when I stumbled upon Joseph Lofthouse's work. He practices land-raised gardening and writes a column about it for Mother Earth News. It is fascinating stuff. He has been working on trying to breed new garlic varieties and has some great insights. He describes the technique of taking away the bulbils from the scapes while still immature, leaving the flowers intact. This forces the flowers to grow and increases the chance of them being viable without shriveling. I even ended up trying this past season, but I didn't record it because I didn't know where it would lead me. My flowers did grow, and bees even visited it, but no seed development. Joseph claims the first generation sexual reproduction is very low, and that there are better varieties to do this with. I also don't know if it was because I only had one variety growing, that it needed different genetics to pollinate successfully. I'll try it again in the future, and I'll keep following his research because this stuff is fascinating. Meanwhile, I'll grow from bulbils. Join me next time to learn about harvesting garlic and seed saving. Remember to send your questions and comments to seedofchoice@gmail.com, and don't forget to subscribe to Suburban Homestead.